Elon Musk just confirmed that he has aspergers on his SNL monologue. I have mixed views on stories like this. On the one hand, I know people use examples of famous autistic people to give hope to children, pointing out that it can't be all that bad if some of the most rich and famous people in the world have had it. If they made it, maybe even leveraging their traits to get there, so can you. Except, on the other hand, that's not how this works. It's true that you can still succeed even if you're autistic, but even neurotypical success often requires big heaping piles of both luck and beneficial upbringing with financial and networking opportunities. So it's as much of a misleading thing to say all these autistic people got rich, famous, powerful, as it is to say anybody can be the US president. Yes, technically that's true, but for all the likelihood it's going to be you might as well just go and try to win the lottery instead. Ultimately, I suppose that means my thoughts on the matter are that, okay, I don't care, but good for you, man who has more wealth and control than I could ever begin to dream of without being sent away for delusional thinking. In theory, somebody autistic with media reach can discuss the difficulties being autistic can present, which should in theory increase awareness, but I'm skeptical of the level of difference that actually makes in the real world. At the end of the day, he's still gonna be that quirky, rich butt face who people sees as a eccentric inventor. We've had those all along. Nothing changed for us. The lucky got successful. The rest of us continue to be plain old weirdos. I think it's important because he's probably the most prominent person confirmed on the spectrum. It actually came from the words of his mouth rather than Autism Speaks preaching it like Bill Gates. Oh, I'm out of the loop. Did Bill never say himself that he has it? Autism Speaks hasn't even existed as long as I've known Bill Gates had Asperger's. I remember seeing it on a board of famous people with learning disabilities in school in the early 2000s, before they were founded. I think it will open a conversation where other profile people come out. There is some good and bad coming from this. I wish we literally had anyone else as the most prominent person on the spectrum. Anthony Hopkins is a pretty good choice. Even Anthony Hopkins is not a great role model. He walked out on his wife and kid and never made any effort to stay in contact. I don't know why you're getting downvoted, LMAO. The man was an absolute prick to his daughter. Like, not walking out prick, straight up, I don't want to be around her and I feel no remorse or need to have a relationship with her level prick. She was probably an Aspie herself if her dad is, LMAO. Well, there are those other guys named Einstein and Hawking. Can you prove beyond a reasonable doubt that some of that wasn't Autism Speaks peddling? Some famous people also have ASD, manipulating the perception, confirmed via the individuals themselves. Stephen Hawking wasn't on the spectrum. Heck no, I don't want this guy to become the face of autism. Agreed. Also, linking bad behavior to autism was part of the reveal, which is really crappy. Also, Dan Aykroyd is just forgotten? How does that get forgotten on the same show? Cast member and guest host, for goodness sake. Yes, idolatry of billionaires simply because they attract money and fame is not a good choice, because it diminishes all the people who possess similar intelligence but are held back because of social deficits, in particular Musk, because he has injured people with his sophistry of calling his driver assist implementation autopilot, which uninformed people have used to injure themselves contrary to the spirit of consumer protection. We let him get away with it because he has chapeau and money, but the typical person with autism has trouble getting appropriate basic educational services in the public schools. I've lived through the Enron era, and the features of his business management have dangerous parallels that could lead to an entire population equating autism with predatory behavior, in the same way that socially magnetic Ted Bundy introduced millions to the concept of sociopathy. The risks are enormous. Yeah, and then he made a joke about autistic people faking emotions and not being human. Plus, he's a massive exploitive buttface in general who takes credit for inventing things by buying them. Oh, so he's the modern day's Tom Edison? A lot of people mistake Asperger's with being a buttface. Have you seen how the cryptocurrency and investment boards that worship him uses Asperger's and autism in general as a joke? There's no way he's completely unaware of the culture surrounding him, and in my opinion, he's giving more of a wink to that type of toxicity more than anything potentially positive by visibility. Immediately after you could see it in the places you'd expect to see online, see, Elon is autistic like us, but not from autistic people, from investment butt faces who use it as a joke to describe bad investment choices. It's a way of the richest man on earth deflecting criticism for all the ways he's a horrible person, while also feeding the worst parts of his cult personality. I read the BBC article. Apparently he said, "Look, I know I sometimes say or post strange things, but that's just how my brain works," he said. "To anyone who's been offended, I just want to say I reinvented electric cars and I'm sending people to Mars in a rocket ship. Do you think I was also going to be a chill, normal dude?" I mean, I don't know the whole story, but this sounds like he's using it as a defense. Heck, I use ASD as an explanation, which is basically like using it as a defense. It is the way it is. Well, there's a difference. I can't really put into words, but when you offend people, you want to be clear that you didn't mean to offend them. He seems to be saying, "I guess you're just offended because I'm not normal." Of course, I might be misreading completely, and it's SNL, so I guess I can't really expect a heartfelt apology. LOL. Like many of you, I'm waking up to this news, and I honestly have mixed feelings about this. On the one hand, good for him for speaking out about his diagnosis in public. We need more public figures being open about their Asperger's or ASD. On the other hand, Elon Musk is such a polarizing figure. Those people that love him will hopefully see this as a positive thing and become more accepting of people with Asperger's. Those people who hate him, and there are plenty of those people out there, I'm afraid their vitriol towards him may end up enforcing more of a negative stereotype of people with Asperger's. Time will tell what will happen. Why this fangirling over a scummy billionaire? Right? I don't get why people like him so much. He gallivants around like he owns everything and people still love him. I read an article a few minutes ago about he and SpaceX were treating a village terribly, and he wants to incorporate it into his new city. Here's the article for anyone wanting to read. Elon Musk's SpaceX acts like they already own everything, as the company reportedly buys up homes in a Texas village, preventing access to public road and beaches. That's just what humans do. They tend to idolize those in power despite all the red flags. I'm glad most people here don't seem to be huge fans of him. That seems to be more the general opinion these days. There was a rough period in between when people were mostly in love with him for some PR stunts and sassing people on Twitter. And when he started doubling down on being a massive butt face, but people were having a hard time completely changing their opinion on him and felt compelled to defend his awful behavior. I don't love him and definitely think he has done some bad things, but I'm a fan of the companies he has started, such as SpaceX. What I can say, the guy gets things done. He actually kind of admitted it over a year ago with this tweet. Not many people seem to notice though. What did the parent tweet say? It was from this time when he was dancing at a press conference or something. His tweet was Spectrum AF in reply to it. Added, didn't realize his tweet was a reply to a suspended account. But yeah, the one you can't see was him dancing that time due to hitting some milestone with Tesla or something. We don't want him. Send him back. For goodness sakes, you can't gatekeep a diagnosis. He has it whether you like him or not. You have to deal with it. I can't find you a dozen autistic people I don't like, but they're still autistic. You don't speak for all of us. ETA, I'm not explicitly a fan of him, but we shouldn't gatekeep Asperger's or autism here, I think. It feels equally creepy with all the comments claiming he's one of us. They don't speak for all of us. A billionaire who uses Twitter is not your friend. He's not the image neurodiversity needs, and he's not something to aspire to in the slightest. Billionaires are scum. ND or NT, it's simple as that. He is one of us. You don't get to play gatekeeper based on your personal preferences. If he has AS, then he has AS. It's a neurodevelopmental disability, not a social club. No one is arguing against that. We're saying that we don't want a crap reputation of being associated with this butt face. For all the fruitfulness this exchange is unlikely to have, at least I can still appreciate the irony in guarding your reputation against being associated with a butt face. Piece of butt. 3, 2, 1. Yeah, sure, if he has it, then he has it. I'm not denying a diagnosis, but I refuse to have the ND image tarnished and represented as a whole by an aloof billionaire desperately trying to use memes and social awkwardness to distract from his child labor and accusation scandals. We on the spectrum already struggle to find out how much of ourselves is the result of our diagnosis. Imagine when people who barely know the condition and already ignore capitalism's blemishes on people and already excuse billionaires enough start assuming all his immoral actions are due to ASD. Also, me pointing out the repeating "one of us" comment wasn't denying his diagnosis. I was pointing out that the blind adoration upon finding out he has ASD is almost cult-like, when surely more people are informed of his immoral actions. Another commenter pointed out exactly what his shtick was: a wannabe Iron Man trying to look benevolent when he's as low as any other billionaire. Parasocial relationships are weird enough with average people, let alone with quirky billionaire, and the "one of us" comments really sound more like this creepy reverend that some billionaire being neurodiverse is some salvation that saves us from our freaking unaliving statistics. Billionaires are not to be aspired to. Billionaires are not role models. The wealthy are not your friends, and the wealthy do not represent human struggles such as ASD, but the humanity and realism they deserve. I'm completely ashamed, to be honest. I'm not convinced. He doesn't have a history of telling the truth, and it's a convenient time for him to use a diagnosis that unfortunately is littered with misconceptions and stereotypes to attempt to explain away his abuse and poor behavior, which are then casted upon the rest of us. Everyone seems overjoyed and willing to accept his words at face value in spite of his history of manipulation using the public pulpit afforded to him. If he is telling the truth, he's not a good representation, to be sure. Edit. Even if he has Asperger's, how is it okay to frame it as, "to anyone I've offended," as if having Asperger's is the reason he calls someone helping children up, or throws tantrums and acts abusive on earning calls, and commits security fraud. That's exactly what he's selling. Blaming the bad things I do on Asperger's and the good parts of me are real. That's insulting on every level. Why do it in a format that no one asks you questions on Mother's Day weekend when your stock has had a bad week and your behavior has been under more and more scrutiny? It was a PR stunt. And if he does have Asperger's, it's even more disgusting that he told the world that having it makes you do horrible things you can't control, and that we shouldn't be held accountable because of that. People would let him slide though. Not only slide, but also praise him as some kind of hero. He's anything but that.